Introduction. This book is being released at a time when India's technological endeavors to assert its sovereignty and strengthen its security are questioned by many in the world. Historically, people have always fought among themselves on one issue or another. Prehistorically, battles were fought over food and shelter. With the passage of time, wars were waged over religious and ideological beliefs, and now the dominant struggle of sophisticated warfare is for economic and technological supremacy. Consequently, economic and technological supremacy is equated with political power and world control. A few nations who have grown very strong technologically over the past few centuries have wrested control for their own purposes. These major powers have become the self-proclaimed leaders of the new world order. What does a country of 1 billion people like India do in such a situation? We have no other option but to be technologically strong. But can India be a leader in the field of technology? My answer is emphatic yes. And let me validate my answer by narrating some incidents from my life. When I first began the reminiscences that have gone into this book, I was uncertain about which of my memories were worth narrating or were of any relevance at all. My childhood is precious to me, but would it be of interest to anyone else? Was it worth the reader's while I wondered to know about the tribulations and triumphs of a small town boy, of the straitened circumstances of my school days, the odd jobs I did to pay my school fees, and how my decision to become a vegetarian was partly due to my financial constraints as a college student? Why should these be of any interest to the general public? In the end, I was convinced that these were relevant, if not for anything else, but because they tell something of the story of modern India as individual destiny and the social matrix in which it is embedded cannot be seen in isolation. Having been persuaded of this, it did seem germane to include the accounts of my frustrated attempt to become an Air Force pilot and of how I became, instead of the collector my father dreamed, I would be a rocket engineer. Finally, I decided to describe the individuals who had a profound influence on my life. This book is also by way of a submission of thanks, therefore, to my parents and immediate family, and to the teachers and preceptors I was fortunate to have had, both as a student and in my professional life. It is also a tribute to the unflagging enthusiasm and efforts of my young colleagues who helped to realize our collective dreams. The famous words of Isaac Newton about standing on the shoulders of giants are valid for every scientist, and I certainly owe a great debt of knowledge and inspiration to the distinguished lineage of Indian scientists that include Vikram Sarabhai, Satish Dhawan, and Brahma Prakash. They played major roles in my life and in the story of Indian science. I completed 60 years of age on 15th October 1991. I had decided to devote my retirement to fulfilling what I saw as my duties in the sphere of social service. Instead, two things happened simultaneously. First, I agreed to continue in government service for another 3 years, and next, a young colleague, Arun Tiwari, requested me to share my reminiscences with him so that he could record them. He was someone who had been working in my laboratory since 1982, but I had never really known him well until the February of 1987 when I visited him at the intensive coronary care unit of the Nizam's Institute of Medical Sciences in Hyderabad. He was a mere 32 years old but was fighting valiantly for his life. I asked him if there was anything he wanted me to do for him. "Give me your blessing, sir," he said, "so that I may have a longer life and can complete at least one of your projects." The young man's dedication moved me, and I prayed for his recovery all night. The Lord answered my prayers, and Tiwari was able to get back to work in a month. He did an excellent job in helping to realize the Akash missile airframe from scratch within the short space of 3 years. He then took up the task of chronicling my story. Over the last year, he patiently transcribed the bits and pieces of my story and converted them into fluent narrative. He also went through my personal library meticulously and selected from among the pieces of poetry those that I had marked while reading and included them in the text. The story is an account, I hope, not just of my personal triumphs and tribulations, but of the successes and setbacks of the science establishment in modern India, struggling to establish itself in the technological forefront. It is the story of national aspiration and of cooperative endeavor, and as I see it, the saga of India's search for scientific self-sufficiency and technological competence is a parable for our times. Each individual creature on this beautiful planet is created by God to fulfill a particular role. Whatever I have achieved in my life is through His help and an expression of His will. He showered His grace on me through some outstanding teachers and colleagues, and when I pay my tributes to these fine persons, I am merely praising His glory. All these rockets and missiles are His work through a small person called Kalam, in order to tell the several million mass of India to never feel small or helpless. We are all born with a divine fire in us. Our efforts should be to give wings to this fire and fill the world with glow of its goodness. May God bless you. APJ Abdul Kalam.